for a second, and I say welcome to the Boswell and Books and Company Readings from Oconomowaukee virtual vet series. I'm Daniel Goldin, and I pass the torch.
And I'm Lisa Baudoin from Books and Company, and I get to introduce Amy today. So Amy Timberlake is the author of several books for young readers, including One Came Home, which received a Newbery Honor and an Edgar Award. Her series about Skunk and Badger have become much loved by readers of all ages, and that is what we're going to talk about tonight, or today. See, Daniel, you got me all confused. So, Amy grew up in Hudson, Wisconsin. She now lives in Chicago. She graduated from Mount Holyoke College and holds an MA in English and creative writing from the University of Illinois. She enjoys being outside, especially on days like today, which I guess we could have done this outside. So welcome, Amy. And I know that you wanted to maybe start by reading a passage from Skunk and Badger that brings us to Egg Marks the Spot.
Okay, so yes. So thank you for having me. I should start there. All right. So these books are about a badger who does important rock work. He does it diligently. He does it every single day. He loves it. Here's from the first book, just so you can see him doing his work at his table. He loves it. And then one day there's a knock at the door, and it is a skunk with a red suitcase, who is basically his unexpected roommate. And unexpected roommates do not usually go well. This one does not go well. Luckily, I don't think this is a spoiler, but luckily they do end up getting together as friends in the end. Okay, so phew, because now we can move to the next book. So the next book comes from page 54 in Skunk and Badger. By the way, I do recommend that you start with Skunk and Badger and then read Egg Marks the Spot. However, if you are just desperate to get outdoors, you could start with Egg Marks the Spot, because I put all the stuff in it so you can kind of catch up. All right, anyway, on page 54 of Skunk and Badger, Badger is showing Skunk his geological maps. And those are the maps that show basically the rocks under the earth, so that, anyway, he's showing him these special rock maps. All right. Badger told Skunk how he used maps on rock finding expeditions. Skunk gasped. Rock finding expedition? What is that? Badger explained about how he camped out. Under the stars? Interrupted Skunk. Technically, yes, but with a picnic every day? Interrupted Skunk again. I guess I do eat outside. Skunk hopped from one foot to the other. What else? What else? So Badger explained how clues in the landscape led to a particular rock. Skunk slapped his paw on the map. Like X marks the spot? Sort of, yes. Then Skunk turned and said, Badger, what are we waiting for? So they don't have to wait long because pretty soon they go off on Egg Marks the Spot. Obviously something happens because there's the word egg here, but I'm not going to tell you what exactly happens. But basically, Badger is trying to find a replacement for his spider eye agate, which has been taken by his cousin Fisher years ago. So he's going to go find this agate. And Skunk wants to go because he loves the book review of the New York Times book review. He loves it, but there's this hedgehog that's moved into town and is taking his book review. And he just does not want to go through a Sunday without the book review. He knows it's going to get stolen. So he just wants to get out of there. So off they go to the campsite number 5 at Endless Lake in search of an agate. And then a bunch of other stuff happens, betrayals, lies, etc. And then whatever this means, the egg, that also is revealed. And so anyway, so that's the basic premise, I think.
So many betrayals. Would you like to start, for folks who haven't seen you before, talking about Skunk? maybe just a little origin about how you came up with the idea to do the book?
Okay. So I was working on another book, a follow-up, well, not a follow-up, but just another middle grade. It was going to be the next book after One Came Home, which had won the Newbery Honor. And I really got stuck. And meanwhile, in that project, I was reading all these stories about bears. And I came across, like you would, A.A. Milne's Winnie the Pooh. And I read all of the Winnie the Pooh stories again, and was really struck by just how well crafted they were. And they were just little nuggets of stories. They had beautiful arcs. I like sort of the philosophical feel of them too. They also had plot. I liked their plotting. And I started to ask myself, what would it be like if you wrote a story in the style of Winnie the Pooh? And I meant, using your sense of humor and your love of language, and it was kind of a writing exercise for me, because I love challenges. And so every time I take on a project, I'm trying to figure out what is the challenge that's going to be exciting. And I thought, well, I've really never done animals in sweaters before. I call these stories Animals in Sweaters now, since John Clausen did these beautiful illustrations. They're not talking animal stories, they're animals in sweaters. Okay, so I'd really never done that. I was a little afraid of doing that, honestly. And I just thought, Amy, here you are stuck on this other project. Why not just try it? So I wrote 2 chapters and I sent them to my agent. And I literally did do this. I wrote him and I said, here's 2 chapters. I just want to know, do you think there's even a market for this? I mean, they were written, I felt like they were written in an older style. I wasn't sure there was a market. And I said, here, what do you think? And he writes me back, and I swear this really did happen. He wrote back, and it was this really simple email, like, I like that. And I thought, oh, no. So I wrote back and I said, okay, if you say you like it, I really am not good at multitasking. I can't write the other book and write this. So it's going to be a year. Like, this is a year. Are you still? And he wrote back, no, I meant it. I really like that. I was like, okay. So I put the other project aside, which I was very happy to do. I wrote Skunk and Badger, and I wrote it as polished as I could get it. It was absolutely just, I tried to make it, I cut it down. I really got it into good shape, because I wanted Steve, my agent, to know exactly what he was getting into. I was like, you have to be clear. I have to communicate to you what this is. So I sent it to him, and he was like, oh, I really like this. Then he said, eventually, there's a little bit more to this story, but I'm going to simplify it. So then he said, let's show this. What do you think about John Clausen? Okay, what do I think about John Clausen? Of course, I know John Clausen. I know who John Clausen is. So, but I was like, well, yeah, that sounds interesting. I did look him up. Like, I just looked up all his work to see, did I feel like it was a match? And of course, I was like, yes, this would be good. And I said, but he's not going to want to do this. Okay. But anyway, so so Steve sent it to John. Steve represents John too. So he sent it to John, and then there was a wait. And of course, by the time it was substantial. And I just thought, okay, well, that was fun. John Clausen got to see my writing. That's an interesting experience all in its own. Okay, and then John said no, he really liked it. But what he really wanted to do was he thought that I would want like 1 million tiny little illustrations in the story. And and he said, and so Steve said, okay, so you don't want to do that, but what can you do? And he said, well, what I'd really love to do is I want to do this kind of old-fashioned style of book, which is where you put these, let me see, I'll just pull out one. All right. So you put these pages into the book that are these, you know, thicker paper, and there's nothing on the other side, but it allows the art to really, the colors to show up and all the textures. And he wanted to do that. And they said, well, so what do you think about that, Amy? And I thought that was great because, I mean, all right, I'll just be honest with you. If I do a book that has 100 little illustrations in it, every time that illustration shows up, my text is going to change. I'm positive it does. So then I have to rethink all the language. I have to think about all the sounds because I really put a lot of thought into how does this sound reading out loud. And I just thought, well, this is so much better for me because then my text can just sort of stand as I
to your source too, to your inspiration.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, so it was, and so then Steve put us together. It was kind of a verbal agreement. We both just had to agree. I know everybody does paper agreements, but I don't know if people do this sort of thing on paper, but we agreed that we would sell our book together. And then Steve sold us like that. And
which is unusual.
Yeah. And that you talked to him before and you interacted with him before it happened. Because usually the author and illustrator are separated. Oh,
yeah. It's interesting. That was the only, I never actually spoke to John directly. It was always through Steve. So Steve mediated. And then the first time I actually spoke to John directly was over Zoom, of course, because the first book came out in the pandemic. So everything was really Zoom, and it still is, but anyway, so Zoom, and we had our first conversation. So it was pretty funny because I was like, first of all, we recorded it over Zoom. I was like, okay, so I actually have a recording of the first time we ever spoke. And that was way after. So that was way after. That's what I'm trying to say. It was way after we published and we're starting to promote the book. Then we started talking. And that's the first time. And he's delightful. Honestly. He's exactly like, I know everybody wants to know how is John Clausen. He's awesome, delightful, sweet. He's a great guy. And I think he's also just really savvy in a good way. He's just a nice guy and he's great. I have nothing to say that's at all.
We weren't expecting you to feud with him during the event. It's nice to know that you call him Awesome Clausen because we might do that as well. Yeah.
Awesome Clausen. Yeah, seriously, he is pretty cool. He's a cool guy.
And they really, his Badger and Skunk are perfect for the characters he wrote.
Yes. Oh, yes. When I first saw, I think I said this last time I was with you, but when I first saw, the first illustration I saw was this one.
Yeah.
And that was the Important Rock work. And Elise Howard, who's the editor on these books, she sent it to me. And it was sort of surreal because it came in, it was an email. I opened the attachment and I just felt like, oh, there he is. That was my experience. That was Badger. He was sitting, and then it was sort of weird because I thought, wait, Amy, Badger is not a real animal. Animals do not wear sweaters. They do not sit at rock desks. That is not a photograph. But that's the way it sort of felt.
Amy, it depends what dog park you go to.
Okay, so maybe.
But I bet it was like discovering a photograph of a long lost relative, like to just suddenly see it go, the story and the picture. Yeah.
That was it. It was
feels
weird.
like it's always been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the weird part. I just felt like he had reached, I mean, I've never met John. He reached in, still, it was like he reached inside my brain, grabbed something out, held it up and said, here you go. And I went, what? That's a little, I've actually told him it's slightly creepy. Like how much I was like, oh my God, that's Badger.
A little too personal.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre.
What a nice experience though to have, for that to be the first one and to be able to move from that experience with him.
No, I've always been, I haven't had my words illustrated that many times, but both times that it's happened, I've been really lucky. This is the first book that I did, and this is Adam Rex's first book. And so, you know, I mean,
nothing but the best for you, apparently.
Yeah, it's great. It's been good.
I'd say.
One of the things that both of us really love about the books is the, the Skunk and Badger, we have no idea how old they're supposed to be in the book, but they both have a childlike joy about life and about, even though, especially in the first book, they are not exactly friends at first, but they both have so much in common about different things. And it so much reminded me of my childhood, where I would have, who didn't have a rock collection? In fact, Lisa's got a has rocks to show us right now. How did you, when you were writing the book, were you thinking about that? And did you draw on some of your own obsessions from your childhood to create the book? No, I didn't like any of this stuff.
Yeah,
I might have to go in the other room and get my pencil collection, because I have all these different pencils. I'm like, it just feels like the only problem is they're not cataloged on a little stage.
Oh yeah, you need a wall of pencils.
Yeah.
I have a wall of Pez, which is close.
You do?
And yes, I do. And I wish I could. It's in the other room. I'm in.
I was like, come on.
I know. I'll have to forward to everybody afterwards. But the thing that's so great about the wall of Pez is, like, whenever I have a kid come in, they look at them laid out, and it's not a ton. I'm pretty selective. And they're like, they just can't stop staring. And then the next time they come, half of them will bring me a Pez. They're like, I need to ask. There's something about collections for a lot of kids that are, and the way that Badger collects rocks, but also the way Skunk thinks of, the way Skunk thinks about food is almost like a collection, or the equipment, or I don't know. I think it really appeals to kids. Or chicken, the way the skunk knows all the chickens.
Yeah. I certainly, I don't know, maybe I just never got over that, actually. I just like all that stuff. I definitely know both of these personalities in myself. I know that sometimes when I get sort of stuck in a not good place, thinking like Skunk or being in that wonder place is a really helpful thing to me. It's like almost a tool for life, just to go, you know what? I think I'm going to be interested in chickens. I'm just going to get into chickens or whatever. I mean, it's kind of a thing, but I don't know. I don't know how that, I can't really tell you how that happens. No.
Fine. Don't tell us.
But is it that sense of wonder and also their curiosity? Skunk's curiosity was so refreshing. And I never, I don't think about curiosity and wonder necessarily being so partnered, but they really are. One is the result of the other.
Yeah. Well, I definitely think that he is always interested. He's if there is a difference in particular, he's very interested in that. And it's only, he never sees I don't know. This might not be true. I can't say this is an absolute, but I think mostly if there's a difference, I think he thinks of it as something to wonder at. That's his response. He's like, oh, that's great, And I like that about that character.
Just the rock or mineral game is, it's so I remember some of my friends with rock collections growing up, but I also think, what kid who doesn't come in who goes through a dinosaur phase? And so they don't just like dinosaurs, they need to know every dinosaur.
Yeah.
Dinosaurs, for those who or like right now, one of my great nephews is like truck and train obsessed, and it's not just enough to be a truck. You need to know exactly what kind of truck it is.
Yeah, I had a cousin who was a young cousin, and he knew every single motor on every single speedboat. From a distance, he could tell you the brand, exactly what was the cool thing about that motor on a boat. And I just remember thinking, all right, come on. That motor is like this big. It's way out there. And he's like, no, that is a blah, 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 blah. And it does blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, who's going to argue with that? Because they know. Like, they really do know. I mean, don't argue with an 8-year-old who knows their motors. Like, just don't. Cannot win.
But it doesn't, those things don't really go away either. I mean, Daniel, you're still collecting pencils and bags and
I'm a bit of an well, this is the thing is like, I think every kid has this childlike wonder of cataloging things. And I think we tend to sometimes stamp it out in kids. Unless the parents go astray and then they wind up with a kid like me who does it forever.
Or me.
Yeah.
Or Amy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've had various collections. But I've lately we just moved to a very small place, and I really had to purge most of them, which is, oh, that was awful.
What were you able to keep anything?
Well, I mean, I cook.
This is so sad.
So I have a spice drawer. It's huge. It's huge. It's like too many. I'm like, who cooks with all this stuff? I mean, I think I only cook with like 5 or 6 spices regularly, but of course I have to have like 40. What is that?
And then you wonder, like in 20 years, when you look at it, you're like, can I still use this? Because
exactly.
I was making something, my family cooks together sometimes on Zoom, and we were using something that called for nutmeg. And I was like, and I told them I got rid of the nutmeg from the last time they made me use nutmeg 10 years ago. And they're like, why would you ever get rid of nutmeg? I'm like, I don't know the rules of these things. So
it's true.
I love so many weird little details in these books, but one of the things I really love is the subplot about the stolen New Yak Times. And I just wanted to make, for people who weren't hearing it right, it is the Yak Times, Y-A-K, because yaks are so good at reviewing books. And
yes.
It's very important to know. And Lisa, I don't know if Lisa, if you did this, but we don't carry newspapers now, but we did for many, many years. And we always had this problem of people stealing sections out of it. And so I so identified with that. And I also thought that when they had this conversation about why the book review is so good, I thought I've never really heard an adult, let alone an animal, explain why you bother reading book reviews for books you're not going to read.
Right.
And
right. And I'm looking up that part. What page is it on?
Lisa, you might have to read it aloud to people because it sort of
it's so perfect.
It perfectly. I also started making a list of books that might be reviewed in the New York Times.
Oh.
Lisa, so we were thinking of other animal books because Lisa and I just both read a kid's book called Clarice the Brave by Lisa McMahon that we really loved about two mice who are, you might review it.
Yes.
The mice are separated when there's a mutiny on the ship, and one of the mice gets stuck behind, and the other one goes off with the captain. Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Very exciting.
All right, so
do you have that part, Amy? Because this is perfect for kids who have to write book reviews. It's really good advice about why the yaks are so successful in their book reviews.
Okay, well, this is after.
And see, I just have the galley, so.
All right.
If you don't find it, Lisa has it. She can read it.
I have it. I can read it.
Oh, yeah? Oh, go ahead. Read it. That would be great. It'd be great to hear someone else read it.
So Mr. G. Hedgehog said excitedly, yaks know how to review books. Yaks are passionate about books and reading. Yaks write with style, originality, and humor. He held up a clock. Also, yaks reveal their likes and dislikes, so you know why they hold an opinion, which allows you to disagree with them more easily. Mr. Hedgehog raised an eyebrow. Yaks are respectful of their readers. Skunk's jaw hung open for a moment and then, ha! I thought it was the shaggy bangs and the hump of nutrients, for focus and not having to eat all that often. Mr. Hedgehog shrugged conspiratorially. Can't hurt.
I love thinking about book reviewers being helped by shaggy bangs and the hump of nutrients of yaks. That just makes me you wouldn't have to read, you wouldn't have to eat ever. You could just hold your book and the bangs would help you focus on the page.
Just lay.
Exactly.
But they talked, where was he too, about how book reviews are just like that potential. They get you excited about a book.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I really like reading a paper copy of a book review and then just, lying on the couch, I put my feet up. I actually probably have like a smartphone nearby where I'm like looking up things, and then I take pictures of the ones that I like and I make a big book list of all these books. I have enough books to read to last, oh my gosh, 30 years, because I have different categories, novels that do this, novels that do that, and anyway, I have all these things. Anyway, so yeah, I just love it. And I love it, especially when a reviewer reveals their personality on the page. I think Laura Lippman, for instance, is one of my favorites. I just love her reviews. She's so funny. Anyway, I like it. Judith, what's her name? Anyway, there's a couple people. I especially like the funny people, but I do even like the nonfiction, because I'm often thinking about nonfiction, and I look through the nonfiction. I go, oh, I have to read this for XXX. Or sometimes, I hate to say this, but sometimes with nonfiction, I can get everything I need from the book review, and then I don't have to read the book, which I hate to admit that I do that, but it does sometimes happen. I always read fiction. So
no, booksellers have to do that all the time.
Yes, but I do like to, I like when a reviewer for a nonfiction book says, so there's all these things I'm not telling you. So, because we wanted them to buy the book.
Yes.
I just want to say, in terms of just books itself, what a lovely package the two books are together. And let's see if I can do this. I wanted to share just an image of the end papers. Did this work?
Yeah.
I see your computer.
Can you open it? Just out a clip.
There it is. Did it come up? Can you see it now?
And we can just see the computer in the little picture.
Oh, that's no good. I have to figure it. Wasn't able to. I thought at the last minute, show people the. So that's books, twos, and papers, and that's camping equipment, because camping is very important for the book. So.
And then this one is rocks.
All the rocks.
And then this one looks like this.
Ooh, so beautiful. Hey, show everybody your agate book.
Oh, yeah. In book 2, they go for a spider. Oh, it's 6.5 pounds. I'm just laughing because I just think that's so funny. I know anyway, it's 6.5 pounds. All right. But it has good pictures. So they go looking for he wants a spider eye agate. This is an eye agate. The one right down here is an agate with all those little circles, so you can see. And then I was definitely thinking about Lake Superior agates, which have a lot of red and orange in them, because these are the ones that I'm more familiar with. But these are really amazing examples. But those are the ones that we all find around here, and especially up where you are, right? Because you're still in the glacier area.
Yeah. You can find some, but mostly on the lakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the rock hunting up here is pretty amazing. Lots of rocks.
Yes. My dad used to pick agates out of the gravel. We had gravel dumped on our driveway, and he would, as soon as the fresh gravel truck came, he would go through it for agates, because that's like one of the, and he would find all these agates, and then he'd bring them down to our rock tumbler, and there was that awful noise. It was like grr. It was just so loud. He had to put it way on one end of the house. That thing was so dang loud. It went on for a month, just constantly.
We never had a rock tumbler, but as a kid, we had an area that was all big, like rocks. And my dad would give us a hammer, and my sister and I would sit out there and break the rocks with a hammer so that we could see the sparkles and see what they look like on the inside.
Whoa, you had cool rocks.
Wait a minute. I think unfortunately, I'm not even close to Lisa. I'm like, what's a rock tumbler? But then I thought that the woman who used to own the bookstore in Mequon, her father had a gem store.
He still does. Yeah, up in Cedarburg. Yeah.
Oh.
And they still go out rock hounding in the West.
Oh, that's so cool. I really want to do that. After doing these books, I'm totally, because I've been subscribing now for a while for these books. I've been subscribing to Rock and Gem. And I'm telling you, no, but in the back, I was just reading. I was just here before we gathered. In the back, they have these really cool listings too of like, here's where all the book fairs are. Or not book fairs, sorry. The
rock
fairs, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, I gotta go. And then they also tell you, here's this mine where you can go out with your pickaxe. And I'm totally doing this. I'm gonna do this.
Do you also subscribe to chicken magazines?
We need to talk about chickens.
Well, no, I just have this book. I recommend it every time.
What's the name of the book?
Chicken Breeds and Care. It's the mini encyclopedia. It's got a lot of photographs. And this woman, Frances Bassam, she's in England somewhere, and she writes very funny copy to me about chickens. And I like it because, you get all the weird chickens. So, because I just think that if you're going to have chickens in your book, I see no reason why you should just have normal looking chickens. So for instance, you should have this chicken like the I know I've shown some of these before, but the Transylvania naked neck chicken, which is a completely healthy bird, which Francis says your neighbors are going to be thinking that you are mistreating your chickens if you have this chicken, but it's a completely healthy bird with very long eyelashes. You know, like stuff, I think you should just have a lot of weird chickens. You should have little chickens. Here's a little tiny chicken. This is a very tiny chicken. And then you should have chickens with long legs, those are the ones that they actually use in fighting. So they're actually, people don't tell people that they have these, but I think they're really fun. So, and I think everybody should appreciate all types of chickens. Okay.
Did they ever ask you to do an event with the author of Brood? Do you know that book? The book that came out this spring about the woman with the chickens?
Yes.
So good.
I have a little pen pal. I'm a little bit of a pen pal with Kevin Hanks, and he really likes that book too. So he told me about it, and I just thought, oh, I have to read that book. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm writing it down.
Now Kevin, Lisa, and I are all telling you to read it.
How life can be explained in such a little book through chickens.
Okay. I'm sold. All right, I got it.
I have to say, reading the book, like getting into the book and the adventure of the new story was a whole nother set of obsessions. I love the rat workers. I love the muscle movers. I love that everybody's got a business card. There's so much fun. I actually wanted to know, it started making me think when they were discussing the flashlight that they were using. I was like, I wonder if somebody collects flashlights. I'm like,
oh yeah.
Badger reminds me of somebody who would have old typewriters. And, it
he
just
does have a typewriter.
Well, no, like 20 or 30.
For backup, just in case.
And then I thought, is there someone out there? Is there a magazine for people who collect vintage flashlights? Or a website? There should be.
Yeah, there probably is.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
The spatula was one of my favorites.
Oh.
That, yeah. I do have that spatula. Watch this.
We're all running to get our spatulas. I don't have one. So,
it's so funny. I'm so close to everything. I can actually get a hold of everything. Spatula, thin and flip. Oh, you have it. Yeah, that's it. You have it.
I fear for my fingers every time I wash it.
I know. Aren't these the best?
Yes.
I broke mine. All right. For anybody who wants the thin and flippy spatula, the spatula of wonder, it is a cookie spatula. Just saying, look for your cookie spatula. It's $8. It's really a great buy.
And it saves the day.
One of the questions is, is there another Skunk and Badger book in the works? This is from Mary.
Yes. The contract is for 3 books. I'm actually thinking of it almost as one story in my head for the 3 books. I'm not saying that it necessarily has to end at 3 books, because I have enjoyed these a lot, and I would sort of hate to think that I'm just going to say goodbye after 3 books. So I don't know. I mean, but it just depends on how well it does, I think. Right. I mean, but the 3rd one is coming. I'm still working on it.
Are you working on the initial story still, or are you like in edits?
No, I'm actually working on the initial story. I did get slowed down by the pandemic. I'll just say it took a bite out of my focus, I think. And then I did also just have, my husband was teaching in the other room. it was, I mean, we got along, we were fine. We were actually fine, but he teaches voice for actors, and he was teaching, and I've never heard him teach. So I was like super interested. I hate to say this. I was just super interested. Sometimes something would be going on. I'd be like, oh, I wonder how that's going. Or sometimes he'd be teaching them. He taught an animation class. So they were doing all these funny voices. And I'm sorry, it's just, it's like all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, so it did actually take a bite out of things. I didn't really realize, how much it was happening until, I mean, look, it was just an awful year on so many levels, but Phil and I working in the same building, I didn't realize how it was affecting me until he left this summer in July. He left the building and I was alone here. And I hadn't been alone for an entire year. And I seriously, it felt like the silence. It felt like I was putting on a cashmere sweater. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. And then it didn't go away. It wasn't just one day. It lasted for like 2 weeks. So obviously I had been around people for a really long time. It was kind of funny. I find it sort of amusing. If it hadn't slowed me down, I would find it very amusing. But there you are.
There we are. I really love how wonderful this book is to read aloud. The way you play with language. It's I'm curious as I think I haven't heard the audiobook, but I've heard good things about it. I was wondering if you could say a few words and in terms of how you were, because I think a class would love to do this. There's so much discovery in it, and some of it is with how wonderful language is.
Well, I read all of my writing out loud. So I write on my computer and then I read it out loud. And then in these books in particular, I would write long, I'd read it out loud, I'd cut it down. So I'm trying to get the language as condensed as possible. It's not poetry by any means, but it's condensed language. So it's part of my process is to think about it being read aloud. And it's always, all of my books are kind of like that. I mean, I always read out loud. But Michael Boatman, how that happened, it's pretty fun. This time in my contract, I got approval rights of the narrator, which is super fun. Oh my gosh, you get to, so that was pretty fun. So basically they sent me a list of 4, I think there were 4 or 5 people that they liked, and I listened to all of them. And then I had my husband who, as I said, teaches voice for actors. So it's really handy to have his input on narrators as well. And we listened to all of them. And honestly, it was pretty clear initially. My gut was just Michael Boatman out of that selection. He was the guy I really liked. I mean, he acted the narration. So, I mean, when audiobooks seem to have different styles, and there was one person that was doing straight classic narrator style, like audiobook narration. I mean, I think you would know it if you heard it. Then there was one person who was doing Grandpa Tells You a Story. I mean, that's how he kind of sounded. He actually didn't sound, he sounded good, but he sounded like Grandpa telling the story. And then Michael was acting it. And people are really, the reviews of Michael's performance have been really good. And yeah, people have really liked it. The last review that we just got a review in Audiophile, and they said Michael Boatman is a one-man band of, and then they listed all these things. Banjo plucks, there's not a banjo, it's an ukulele, but banjo plucks, chicken clucks, you know, and they listed all this stuff, and that was really fun. So yeah, I think it's worth at least going on to, like, say Libro FM, so you can support Boswell's book company. So go to Libro FM. what did I just get your name? Oh.
No, we're two stores.
Oh, and yeah, so you can, okay. So you have the two bookstores. So pick which one you like, or which person you like. I don't know how you do this. Anyway, you pick one, and then Libro FM will send them a mount of the audiobook. But it's worth listening to. I really think it's worth listening to and seeing if you like it.
Amy, we're so thrilled that you're very well versed in the world of Libro FM, because so many people outside of booksellers don't really understand that you can support an independent bookstore with audiobooks. So
and it's been a great, it's been really great. We've had a lot of readers start using it and they love it. They really do. And they're great support, and you do get to keep the story local.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, where would we be if we don't have a place to go talk books? Well, clearly you read my books, and I mean, that's important. Like, where would they be without Chicken Books? There's nothing good that's going to happen in North Twist if Chicken Books isn't there. That's what I got to say.
Chicken Books is the store that I want to visit. I mean, our stores are very nice, but they are no Chicken Books.
No Chicken Book.
Why? What do you think you're missing?
Chickens. Actually, then we would be Wild Rumpus. That does have chickens.
Oh, true. Wild Rumpus does have a chicken.
Yeah. Maybe you just need. I know that one thing Chicken Books does have is they have a door with two handles, because all the animals are different sizes. So you need two handled doors, and you need a little tiny display under your book display for mice.
Yes.
Yes.
We do. We do. We may just actually do that. What I loved about the books as a former preschool teacher, as the mother of two sons, and just as a bookseller, is the amount of book reading, of science, of curiosity, of food is so essential to the story, where it's just like he cooks all the time, and it's just maybe because it's what I grew up with and what I did with the kids, but it's so, all of it is just those kinds of values that you don't find often in books.
Oh, thank you.
The science. I love the way you weave in the science into the story.
Yeah. I mean, if Badger's going to be passionate about rocks, when he looks at things, he's going to see things as a geologist, which actually is pretty challenging. I still am struggling. I know last time we talked, I was saying, I'm not a geologist, but I am still struggling. I am still working through. And so I'm reading, I have a geology textbook, and because I really realized eventually as I started, I chose rocks. And then as you get into it, you realize the way he looks at things is completely different than the way I look at things. And it just won't be real if he doesn't see landscape like a geologist, or if he doesn't see a rock and not think a rock, but he actually thinks the name of that rock and goes, oh, I have this specific thing that I love about the phenocryst in the whatever, he's got these things that he sees, because it just wouldn't be real. I mean, I know they're animals in sweaters, but it's still kind of real.
It is.
And then how is it balancing out the different kinds of animals and their relationships? Because some of them have a predatory nature.
Oh, it's so hard. That is the hardest thing. But when you think about us, we're omnivores too. Okay, so there is a reality to these books. Somehow there's a reality that some animals eat other animals, or they taste other animals. I mean, okay, let's just be honest. Most of us also do this as well. So but it just makes it really, it's an interesting thing to work through that. And I don't know, I think it's a reality of their world, is that the chickens, for instance, it's a good thing that chickens have, I don't want to spoil the first book. If you haven't read the first book, there's an important thing about physics and chickens, and I think that protects the chickens a bit. their interest in physics. I don't want to get into it too much, but I mean, chickens are always, there's a lot of animals that see a chicken and say dinner. That's a problem.
We need to teach all of our chickens that secret too.
Yeah, I know. They need to know their physics.
Yes.
That's what I say.
So with Skunk and his love of cooking, it seems sort of an ironic thing for a skunk to want to do, considering what skunks are known for.
Oh, you mean
the part of it? That he's such a gourmand about everything, you know, you just don't expect a skunk to be one to be, you know, considering.
I never thought of that. I actually never thought of that. I don't know. I think it's probably the opposite for me. I think because they use smell, but I thought, well, of course they're cooks.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's true.
I was particularly intrigued by skunk's love of pawpaws, which you called like a banana cream pie that you don't have to cook. And so I actually was running around to everyone, was like, you had a pawpaw? You know, it's America's largest indigenous fruit. And I was like, and I was like, what are you talking about? And people were like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. Can I find it? Can I find a pawpaw at a supermarket or a farmer's market?
I would go to the farmer's market, and I would go to your fruit seller, and I would say, at least here in Chicago, in Chicago, I can get it at my farmer's market. One of the fruit growers brings it in. I'm not sure you could get it at a grocery store, because the thing about pawpaw is that it turns absolutely brown on the outside. It looks like you would never want to eat this thing. And that is when it is at its best. It's like, you know, when you make banana cream pie, you get the banana black, and then it's like, it is ready for banana cream pie. It's the same thing with the pawpaw. So you get it, you let it go. It's the one that I've seen, the ones that we have here are just about this big. And anyway, so they turn black. You sort of you open them up. They have this row of seeds that look sort of like a stack of records. And you pick out the seeds, and it literally tastes like banana cream pie. It's amazing. And my husband's father said that they used to call pawpaws the Indiana banana. So it's out there, but I think because it turns such a weird color, and it's, you know, it looks unappetizing when it's ripe, I think that it's one of those fruits that they can't sell in grocery stores. And you actually sort of need a farmer's market or somebody just to say, no, really, you're gonna like this if you try it. It's amazing. It's an amazing, and I think you can even grow, I think they grow on trees. So I actually think that if I were living, I don't know where the growing line is, but if I could grow one, I would totally grow one.
You said that they're available in the Great Lakes region.
Yeah, in our farmers market, we can get them. But I think they're one of those.
You said it. Somebody said it. I read it in Wikipedia.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Okay, good.
I think it has to be 5-6 growing zone. 5 is kind of iffy. So they're more of a mid-southern, like southern Indiana and further south. So they're not super south, but that mid-south.
Which would be why we're not seeing them.
Yeah, you wouldn't see them up here.
Okay. That makes sense too, because the weird part about living in Chicago with fruits and vegetables is that we have farmers that come from Michigan, and there's like one side of the lake that is a different weird growing season. So they have these great fruits because of where we are.
Yeah, and we don't usually, I bet people even come from Indiana to Chicago, whereas it's all Wisconsin here. Except that sometimes there's like a truck that comes up and brings watermelon or something like that.
Or peaches.
Or peaches, yeah. So that you can,
Peaches.
Nah. I also wanted you to say a word about the favorite breakfast of Skunk and Badger. Huevos.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just sent a link for folks to see it. So we were discussing
huevos monteleños.
Yes.
Are you talking about that?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, okay. So if you want to have huevos monteleños, you have to go to Frontera Restaurant in Chicago. They have brunch on Saturday. They never talk about their brunch. It's only on Saturday. And basically, you might be worried that you can't get a reservation there. This is not a problem. What they always hold tables for people who show up and wait outside. So usually what I do on Saturdays is I just walk down to the restaurant and I stand out there for like about a half an hour. I'm usually the first person, doesn't even matter. And then you can get huevos monteleños, which is the best breakfast ever invented. And I have to find that part. Where is that? Where is the best breakfast? Because I love, oh, in another pan.
I thought we should talk it up. Maybe we'll get more places making it around here.
So Badger just loves eating. So no matter what, he's just gonna love it. This is on page 24. And okay, Skunk crossed the room with a rimmed plate. Huevos monteleños, one of the best breakfasts ever invented. A fried egg and a tostada balanced on a black bean island. The island rose out of a red sea. Cinnamon, chilies, roasted tomatoes, fresh peas and fried plantains bobbled at the island's edges. Badger did not hesitate. He picked up his spoon and marooned himself on that eggy island. When Badger looked up again, he found himself alone. That's like one of Badger's problems, is that he loves eating so much that everything falls away as soon as food's in front of him. So, you know, anything can happen if he's eating because he doesn't see anything. But that breakfast, oh, that is an actual serious description of my favorite breakfast. I've actually dreamt about this breakfast. I never dream about food, but sometimes in the middle of the night, I'll go, huevos monteleños. Oh my gosh. Love it.
Before we go, is there what obsessions might we find in your next book? Anything you've been thinking about a lot?
Oh, well, okay. Well, there's more rats. And I
actually Googled the Norway rat because I was very interested in that. Right?
Yes, it's true. It supposedly came over on a boat and then landed in the middle of a war. So, you know, too bad for the rat. That's pretty bad time.
It came over with the Hessians.
Exactly. So, yeah, so I guess rats. And what am I? Oh, I did. I'm thinking a lot about winter and hibernation because they're seasonal. So, and it's weird. If you think about your life and you think about what you would have to interrupt if you hibernated, and, you know, it's really funny because like, I find it really funny, like Rockhound Weekly, like there's going to be a huge subscriber base that just drops off as soon as a temperature hits a certain degree. You know, what happens to your subscribers? They're going to want special discounts for your magazines and anyway, there's just all sorts of problems with hibernation. So just imagine your life, imagine hibernation and go, how would I manage that? I don't know how you would manage it.
Lisa's going to have one more question. And we also have a question from Ellie, H8, who wants to know if you have or have had any pets that have inspired you in this story? Or animals?
No, I hate to say this. No.
You admire them from afar.
Well, I'm definitely a birder. And so, you know, go out, I watch animals quite a bit, and I like other people's dogs. I usually name other people's dogs. I mean, they don't know that I do this. I walk down the street and I give them all new names. But so I like other people's pets a lot. I definitely don't have one. I don't have any pets except my husband
It's a small apartment.
I feel guilty about this. I don't want to be too disappointing to anybody, but no pets.
I had a question, just lost it. So we're going to see more of the rats in the next one. We're going to have some hibernation. Mm-hmm. Are they going to be, we're going to continue with rocks, or do rocks just sit for a while and we focus on some of what the rats love?
Oh, there's always, I mean, Badger is always doing important rock work. I mean, that is his main driving force. So, if Skunk is going to get him to do anything, or, I don't know. He's doing something slightly different in book 3, but it is all rock related, and there are important things that he's discussing. I guess it's I'm trying not to say what it is, but he's talking a lot about glaciers, glacial action.
We love the glaciers.
We like the glacials.
Yeah, and how it messes up. I mean, glaciers, for a geologist, glaciers are really a problem, because if all the rocks were stacked in a nice layer, you could really tell the history of the earth, right? But then a glacier comes like a big bulldozer, takes a bunch of stuff and moves it over here, and then moves it back and moves it forward, moves it, and basically it's a big mixer. That's a big problem. So glaciers are not your best friends. They're kind of annoying, but also sort of interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about glaciers.
Oh, one more question from Dominic, who's 8. Where'd you get the inspiration for Badger's love of rocks, since we are talking about rocks?
Probably from my dad. He had a rock collection on his on the bookcase, and then also my grandfather was in the copper industry. So when I visited them in Silver City, New Mexico, they had these big rocks all over the yard. It was kind of desert landscape, but with huge weird rocks and mining equipment. So it definitely makes you think it's sort of weird when you see, say, this big blue rock that just came out of the ground. And that's like one of those things. I think with copper, and I'm always forgetting what this rock is called, but there's a rock that shows up right before you find a copper deposit. And it's a really weird, shiny blue-green rock, and it's not turquoise. It's actually this other weird rock. And I think it's part of the industry. Anyway, the yard had these weird rocks, and they're big. So
I don't know what to say.
I know. Somebody explain my grandparents to me.
But I will just say that, I'll just say that it's just inspiring that just about any collection or interest can inspire a really delightful children's book. And I think any kid who's writing a book or adult should think about that sort of what you know.
Yeah. Not the what you normally think about as inspiration in daily life, but the quirky stuff.
That's right. Lisa and I say the quirkier, the better.
Yes.
Okay. Yay. Well, thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me and everything.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, we'll have a recording up within a week. We'll share it with you. And we have a link to purchase the book from either of us. We have those delightful book bites. Yes. And we hope you'll get them. Or both. Yes. If you haven't read it, get both of them. They look very nice.
Oh, they do look very nice together.
Beautiful.
Oh, and then you can put them together, and then you see like little chicken and fisher.
Oh, and you know what? On the back side of, is it on Skunk and Badger? On the very back, there's the tree that has the face.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
What? There's a face?
In the tree.
You'll have to look at it. You can't really quite tell from the cover. You'll have to go get your copy and inspect.
Oh, this guy, right?
No, on the back side.
Really?
On the dust jacket.
Oh my gosh, I'm totally talking. I'm totally finding that.
Well, this is the key. You can read it. I've read the books twice, and I got a lot out of them the second time. And if I know kids, they might read it 7 or 8 times. So
yes,
oh,
at least, and there's enough to find and discover. So have fun.